What's up, Taiwan? I'm Reece with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Rescuers believe they've found the bodies of a family killed by a rock slide triggered by last week's earthquake in Hualien. Sniffer dogs helped guide rescuers to where the bodies were buried on a mountain trail in Taroko National Park. DNA tests show at least 2 are family members. The 3 other bodies are yet to be identified. A Singaporean couple are still missing in the area. Wednesday's magnitude 7.2 earthquake killed 16 people and injured more than 1,000. President Tsai has promised $15 million to help reconstruction efforts in Hualien. Tsai visited the region, which was worst hit by the quake, to inspect reconstruction efforts. Nearly 1,500 households in the eastern county live in unsafe buildings, including some that are beyond repair. Tsai has also promised $600 million in loans to help hard-hit industries. The quake has taken a huge economic toll on the Hualien region. One key local industry is facing $32 million worth of damage. John Van Trieste reports.
Yet another factory floor in Hualien ruined. Marble and stone are important pillars in this eastern county's economy, both imported and locally mined in the area's mountains. But last week's magnitude 7.2 earthquake near here shattered much of the stock in seconds. The worst-hit factories lost 80% of their inventory. One estimate puts the total damage at $32 million. The cleanup alone could take 2 months in some cases. Shipments that were supposed to go out will now have to be delayed too, deepening the economic cost. For now, local officials are trying to figure out where all this destroyed stone is going to end up.
我们非常迅速地找出一个大概约2公顷的一个土地这个部分初估是可以来解决这个我们的这个破碎大理石材的一个现在一个堆置的一个问题。
The large-scale destruction is yet another blow to livelihoods in Hualien. The other big economic pillar, tourism, is also in trouble. The earthquake destroyed hotels, triggering mass layoffs, and a drop in bookings is expected even where tourism can continue. Hualien is one of Taiwan's most earthquake-prone regions, though, and this isn't the first time people here have had to rebuild. The government has promised relief based on a program it launched after the last big one in 2018, when the stone industry got around $93 million in support.
的费用我们大概就比较0206的模式，但是因为薪资上涨，还有原物料上涨，所以我们这一部分也会做适当的调整。
Hualien stone factories don't yet know how much they can expect to get, though, and whether it will be enough to get this key local industry back on its feet. Devin Tsai and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Some of the most vulnerable people affected by the earthquake, migrant workers, are calling for help to get back on their feet. To learn more about their plight, Tiffany Wong spoke with Julia Mariano from Migrante Taiwan, an NGO that helps Filipino migrant workers.
There are over 750,000 migrant workers in Taiwan, and over 5,000 of them work in Hualien, which is the epicenter of that earthquake. So how has that earthquake affected migrant workers?
Right now, the number is up to 15 Filipinos were injured, some working in domestic work. And as we know, some structures in Hualien, a lot of structures in Hualien actually were destroyed by the earthquake. And a lot of these caretakers, where their workplaces are the homes, they were affected along with it. And then in factories as well, one Filipino as she was evacuating, debris fell on her head, and she had to be hospitalized. And so a lot of these Filipino workers are suffering both physical and also psychological injuries.
Migrant workers in Taiwan mostly work in manufacturing industries or caregiving. So how has the earthquake impacted their jobs? Have some people even lost their jobs?
I think what this earthquake has revealed is the way their jobs are very precarious. For example, for caretakers, during the earthquake, their first priority is to evacuate or to protect their patients that they're taking care of, even to almost to a point where they will have to sacrifice themselves. For example, they use their own bodies to cover their patients. They have to put the life of the patient before theirs. The conditions of the factory workers inside the factory, it has always been also precarious. We're not very sure of the safety standards. And so this earthquake has revealed the precarity of what their working conditions are.
Are migrant workers eligible for any assistance from the Taiwanese government, their own home countries, or even the brokers themselves? And how can they get help after this earthquake?
Because specifically migrant caretakers, they have already been excluded from the Labor Standards Act. And so during emergencies like this, and even before the earthquake, when they have to be taken to the hospital or when they are sick themselves, one is they don't have set days off where they will be free to go out. And what that translates to is sometimes they will be, if they choose to take a day off, it will be deducted from their salary. If they ask assistance from their broker or to be taken to the hospital, then they will also be made to pay extra fees instead of these fees being covered by their employers themselves.
That was Migrante Taiwan spokesperson Julia Mariano speaking with TaiwanPlus reporter Tiffany Wong. 3 sons of Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh have been killed in an Israeli airstrike near Gaza City. The 3 were making family visits at a refugee camp on the first day of the Muslim holiday Eid al-Fitr when their car was hit. They were traveling with 4 of Haniyeh's grandchildren, 3 of whom were also killed in the strike. The Israeli military has confirmed the attack, describing the 3 sons as operatives in Hamas's armed wing. Russia and Kazakhstan have ordered more than 110,000 people to evacuate as floodwaters engulfed hundreds of homes and roads. A state of emergency was called after fast-melting snow caused the Ural River that flows through both countries to reach unprecedented levels. In some areas, the water rose past bursting points of over 10 meters, causing flooding in cities along the river's path. It's the worst flood in the region in at least 70 years. Japan and the United States have agreed to almost 70 different initiatives, all focused on increased defense cooperation. As Jaime Ocon reports, it's a reflection of the changing security environment, both in Taiwan and the South China Sea.
Cheers.
A toast to friendship. Japan's Prime Minister Kishida Fumio is in Washington, D.C., meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden. The 2 countries, which have been treaty allies for over 70 years, say this trip is about celebrating their long-standing alliance. Kishida has been in Washington for less than 2 days, but he and Biden have already signed roughly 70 agreements on defense cooperation. One of the biggest deals so far is to create a joint command center in Japan for U.S. forces overseas.
Our alliance we have with Japan is purely defensive in nature. It's a defensive alliance. And the things we discussed today improve our cooperation and are purely about defense and readiness. It's not aimed at any one nation or a threat to the region, and it doesn't have anything to do with conflict.
Japan is home to dozens of U.S. bases, which house over 50,000 soldiers and are vital to the U.S.'s continued presence in Asia. But that presence is now being challenged. In recent years, neighboring China has quickly modernized its armed forces and is now increasing military operations, particularly around Taiwan. China claims the country is part of its own territory, and other countries in the region are concerned Beijing might take military action to accomplish its goal of taking Taiwan.
まず私たちは力または威圧による一方的な現状変更の試みは世界のいかなる場所であれ断じて許容できず、同盟国同志国と連携し引き続き毅然として対応していくことを確認しました。
That's why Japan and the U.S. are reinforcing their defense ties to counter this threat. At the summit, agreements over joint weapons production, increased military drills, and intelligence sharing were all front and center. Analysts say the increased cooperation is motivated greatly by the security environment surrounding Japan.
Japan has 3 territorial disputes, not only with one being with China, the other being with Russia, the other being with North Korea. It's in a neighborhood that it sees as pretty hostile.
Biden and Kishida's meeting comes just a day before a three-way summit with Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. on Thursday. The timing of these meetings is what many analysts are highlighting as there are security concerns beyond Taiwan.
Part of me is inclined to say that perhaps the United States, Japan, and Filipino leaders think that perhaps the South China Sea is a flashpoint that could be more pressing, and at least in the near term. That's not to say that the Taiwan Strait as a flashpoint is not dangerous at all, but considering what's been going on over the past several months between China and the Philippines, it is something that they do need to address.
It'll be the first time leaders from Japan, the Philippines, and the U.S. will meet in person at the White House, showing that the growing threat from China is quickly affecting not just one, but multiple countries in Asia. Justin Wu and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
South Korea's liberal opposition parties have won big in Wednesday's parliamentary election, increasing their majority over the ruling People Power Party.
국민의 오늘을 지키고 국민의 더 나은 내일을 여는데 우리 22대 국회가 앞장설 수 있도록 하겠습니다.
With all votes counted, the opposition Democratic Party is projected to take 175 of the 300 seats, with President Yoon Suk-yeol's People Power Party set to take 108. Official results are expected soon. The ruling party's leader has resigned in defeat, an outcome which analysts say leaves President Yoon as a lame duck for his 3 remaining years in office. Yoon's popularity has been suffering amid political scandals and voter frustrations over high costs of living. Inflation in Taiwan eased slightly in March, but consumers say they're still feeling the pinch. Chris Gorin looks at how higher prices are impacting the behavior of people and businesses.
This popular curry shop in New Taipei City has no shortage of customers. But thanks to the rising cost of meat, the owners recently decided to raise the prices on its menu.
我们有提供猪肉、牛肉、鸡肉，那这部分的话都有涨幅。6月的时候，我们会预计会做调涨，然后调涨多少还在计划当中。
And they're not the only ones raising prices. Small but noticeable changes can be found on restaurant menus nationwide. Both higher costs and high-profile recent food poisoning cases have made Taiwanese diners more cautious about eating out.
减少一餐吧，可能就会变成可能吃早午餐跟晚餐这样子，
少吃外面的，而且现在食安问题很严重。
Inflation in the first quarter was lower than initially predicted, with the consumer price index dropping to 2.34%. But surveys show that people still have money on their minds. A recent poll of office workers showed that a whopping 94% are planning to curb their spending because of inflation. On average, workers say they're planning to cut costs by around $120 per month, a major cutback considering Taiwan's generally low salaries. But some experts say that may be more than what's needed.
官方经常信息4.6万元，再乘以这个2%的通膨警戒线，大概每个月月薪需要调900块以上的话，才有办法抵消这种物价上涨的一个压力。
And while electricity costs in Taiwan have also gone up this year, experts say this should be more manageable than price hikes caused by global factors outside of Taiwan's control.
4月会调涨电价，可能又是成本面兼需求面的这个冲击，但是这个成本面的冲击不会像2022年那时候的国际原物料高涨那么样的严峻。
Inflation may be coming down, but with many workers already living within tight margins, they're also tightening their belts. John Su and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we leave you with these 16 endangered moon bear cubs recovering after an historic rescue in Laos. I'm Reece. Take care and we'll see you next time.